Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at The Benefice by Robert Wilde, apparently. This is from about 1641. It's very close to the end of our dating range, so it's far in the future of our general haunts. But we have occasionally sort of popped into the neighbourhood. I think we have done a 1641 before. We've definitely done a 1642. So we're slowly edging out there aren't that many 1640 plays to do, to be honest, because we only got up to 1642. So getting a sort of sense what the end of the market's like. But otherwise, don't really know much about this play or this person per se. He wrote something. So to read what he wrote, we've got these wonderful readers. So reading Ceres and Ursely is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm in the Northwestern United States.
Reading Pedanto and Marpudding is...
Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Furor and Bookworm is...
Lois in London.
Reading Comaedia and Marchurch is...
Oh, that would be Brian Myers from Portland, Oregon.
Reading Boy, Watch Number 1 and Sir Hobnail is...
I'm again. I half expected Robert to go. Whoa!
I kind of did, but I think that the sound edit sort of on the Zoom thing just slightly took the edge off, and it's one of those things. Sometimes you can try comedy situations, and technology just wants to take comedy away from us. Anyway, reading Invention, Watch Number 2 and Hobnail is...
Rachel in Canada.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and other things as we go. There's a little thing to the reader, but we're not going to bother reading that because the Act 1 sort of... I say Act 1, it's sort of... You'll see what I mean in a moment, so I won't say it. So, anyway, Act 1. Behind the curtain, a schoolmaster at study writing with many books before him, and a little boy under him with his grammar in one hand and bread and butter in the other. Enter Invention and Furor Poeticus. Invention comes in studying. After a pause, he steps back and calls Furor Poeticus.
Furor, furor. So, ho, ho.
There is now a bit in probably Greek, which we don't have in our text. Enter Furor panting and blowing.
Good Master Invention. Oh, you're too quick for me. You are in as much haste as a scholar to get a wife or an heir to sell his land. Hey, presto, whipping away. Your brains are as nimble as if projections and monopolies were alive again.
Come, Furor. You know I have a deal of work to do. Since my name was Invention, I never knew such a busy time. Let me see my table book. What business have I to dispatch?
Pulls out his table book.
Oh, Bodkin the tailor. I must invent for him some new-fashioned breeches with a tippet here behind to turn up, that gentlemen may go to stool and not untruss. Item. I must invent a plot, how the papists may escape the purgatory of the Parliament.
I have a plot for that. Let them put their heads through a hempen rosary and say 3 Ave Marys with a wry mouth, and I'll be their bondslave. They need not fear afterwards.
Memorandum. I must invent a plot how the Scots may get more money when that they have is gone.
That's easy. Let them come for it.
Arms for a Welshman.
2 trees rampant and another croissant, a ladder ascendant, a hangman couchant, the rope pendant, and the fields sable, ad lib, ad lib, ad lib.
To help a chambermaid to her maidenhead.
Oh, if she be handsome, she shall have mine.
Memorandum. Parson T.M. must have a sermon made against Christmas for at 2 shillings 4 pence. Mr. and so on would learn to preach after the new cut.
And that's not the shortcut, I'm sure.
Item. I must find a cure for that sick of 2 livings.
Let the incumbent sweat 3 weeks for anger, suck his thumbs with patience, be soundly cupped 24 hours. After that, take the wax of an old commission for a divine to be a justice of peace. A quarter of Abel's wine, a pound of Brumfield soap that hath escaped a scouring, with a handful of Goring's tobacco roots. Mix them with the oil of lamb's grease, boil them in a cornered cap from an archbishop to a bishop, from that to dean, from that to an archdeacon, from that to a prebend, and so to a commissary, if you can decoct them so low. Then strain it through a lawn sleeve, fiat emplastarum. Lay this to one of his temples, and his pleurisy will leave him.
I must find out how many religions there be in London. Item, whether Stratford be dead with his head off. Item, I must make verses for a young gentleman upon a louse that was found in his mistress's head 6 foot long upon the 5th of November last.
Avaunt, 6-footed monster, if I catch thee, my Pollux onyx quickly shall dispatch thee.
Invention looks about him.
Brother Furor, are we? Is this? It should be a conventicle with so many heads and faces in it, and all together in a barn, too.
Boy behind the curtain. Is the boy saying this behind the curtain, I wonder?
I think he is, yeah.
I think he is. Boy, this is your line.
Wait, behind the curtain. As in presenti, is that the bit? Yeah. As in presenti perfectum format in abi.
Here's a school, I think.
Furor peeps within the curtain.
Aye, and here's the old one in his form, as sad as if he had 2 livings and had sold one of them. He looks as melancholy as if some woman had scratched him by the face for whipping her boy, or if he were studying to decline. Shh, shh. Come hither, little boy.
Enter boy.
Now, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Prithee, what's thy master studying on? He's so close at it.
Why, he's making a play for an exclusion.
And hath he done it?
Done it? I think he hath gnawed 3 close to the hills for a line or 2. The frost hath gotten into his nose, I think, and his brains bethought, we shall not have a drop more done in it. I think if the clasps and keepers of hope did not keep up the bridges of discretion, he'd do it in his sleep, in his hose. And yet he hath all the playbooks in the country to help him. Like the cookie, he sucks others' eggs. Here he steals a word, there he filters a line, as we boys do for themes. He hath studied himself out of his wits about it, and if it should not take, I hope it will not, I believe it will be his last. He'll run away for shame.
And why dost thou hope it will not take?
Why? Because I never have a part in it. But he shall come short of a Christmas dinner, my mother says. Kissing goes by favor, she says. Pray ye, gentlemen, step into him while I run home to breakfast.
Exit boy. Invention draws the curtain aside.
By your leave, sir. God bless your learning.
Apollo, bless thy brains so fickle, and souse them in pure Heliconian pickle.
Marry, and soused hog's head is no ill meat, Furor.
Gentlemen, you are welcome. You take me at a hard task here.
Why, prithee, Pedanto, what's thy negotium?
Why, gentlemen, my trade is to teach wild geese how to fly in the figure of crisscross row. That is to say, in English, I'm a schoolmaster, and here against Christmas, I'm blowing my nose for a dialogue.
A dialogue? What's that? It's neither prologue, nor epilogue, nor tragedy, nor comedy, nor pastoral, nor satyr, nor masque, nor Morris dance. What's a dialogue?
Why, gentlemen, a dialogue is a poetical pudding, or the muses' hodgepodge, a discourse like that between Dr. Faustus and the devil, or 2 or 3 men in a pig market. That's a dialogue.
May I be so bold as to peruse your library?
Yes, sir, if you please. See the books I borrowed for the business.
Invention takes up the books, looks in them, and speaks.
Plautus, a subtle diver into man, and yet the fate of poets, poverty and wit. Pimp Mercury and cuckold-making Jove, Amphitrion's horns and Alcimena's love, could not find a better quill, nor we a better father for our poetry.
And yet he came off in his last act like a costive man from the stool without wiping. His splay feet were too broad for verse. He'd been a pretty fellow, but that they fed him with milk, corn, and pottage. So take him, jailer.
Ben Jonson, great big brickbat Ben, the envy of thy days. Thy only English brow deserves the bays. Others did wear the ivy bush as sign, none of their wit, but lattice face and wine. But thy industrious brain, great Ben, did seem to make the laurel, which thou wore, grow green. Thine are the tragics and the comic lays, and thou art the refiner of our drossy phrase. And so thy alchemy, I dare be bold, hath turned our baser metal into gold.
Pretty, pretty. An ordinary wit would make him piss and stink at the stake like an old bear. And then damnable tedious and costly, too. Every half-quarter of an hour, a glass of sack must be sent of an errand to his guts to tell his brains they must come up quickly and help out with a line. So take him, jailer.
Whack. Shakespeare, his quill is quick as a feather from a bow. Oh, can such another Falstaff show? And if thy learning had been like thy wit, Ben would have blushed, and Jonson never writ.
Ish, I never read any of him but in tobacco papers and the bottom of pigeon pies. But he'd been a curate to the stage so long that he could not choose but get some ends and bottoms. Aye, and they were his fees too. But for the fine and true dramatic law, he was a dunce and scribbled with a straw.
Beaumont and Fletcher, the Muses' twins, and in our English sphere, Castor and Pollux, so they did appear. 'Tis thought when they were born, Apollo's will was to divide the two top Parnassus Hill, that Beaumont, lofty Beaumont, might have one, and Fletcher take the other for his throne.
Ah, pair of journeymen, they write both with a quill. Thus have I seen two greyhound puppies play with one another's itching tails all day. A couple of cowards, part them, and like two worms they would shrink in their heads. Marry, take them together, and let them mouths, and they would do smartly. They would club for verse, one find rhyme and another reason. So take them, jailer.
Tom Randolph's poems, a sweeter swan did never sing upon the downy banks of oily Helicon. Methinks I see the fates and muses fight, as chaplain Tom should be. And in despite, like jealous lovers, bring him to his hearse that they might kiss his chin and read his verse.
'Twas Tom of Bedlam, not Tom Randolph, sure. His wits too violent long to endure. Pity so rare a fancy should have found an Helicon so deep as to be drowned. Tom's dead, and every muse hath vowed to be, for Stafford's sake, a Stafford's Niobe. Take him, jailer.
These authors are as good as we can have.
And we're going to pause there, mid dialogue. There's quite a lot of this. It is awkward, obviously, for this text to spend so much time speaking about the beautiful, timeless writing that comes out of the best author of all time, Thomas Randolph, who he really just come out of left field, doesn't he? We have done some Thomas Randolph, and there is some good stuff in there. But he's a slightly interesting choice there out of others that come out there. I have to say there are some really good bits in this. I am enjoying this. It is full of stuff that is going to fly over people's heads, but there's just about enough in here where I'm sort of got that, especially when it gets a bit rude. There are some really good lines. I'm enjoying this a lot. Thoughts in the room. I'll go to Lois, then Lynn, then Alan.
Yeah, this author obviously knew The Return from Parnassus, that series of Parnassus plays, which were done in Cambridge, about 30, 40 years before this, because it's got a similar scene in which somebody's looking at in fact, it's a sort of printed commonplace book with lots of extracts in it. And he's going down the table of contents, mentioning writers, and then the other character ticks off a series of epigrams about them. And for that matter, there is a character in that play called Furor Poeticus.
Oh,
That might have been an obvious name anyway for something allegorical like this. Anyway, yeah, I find it, of course, quite fun. It's lovely to get comments. Ben Jonson had only been dead a few years, and I think Randolph was quite recently dead. I mean, he died quite young, and he apparently was the sort of enfant terrible, bright spark, promising genius of his time.
Yeah, and of course it starts off with the back and forth with Invention, and I do like some of the things. I did quite like the new fashioned breeches. The gentleman may go to stool and not untruss. Yeah, there's Lynn.
that. What I was going to say is this little passage we've just read includes perhaps my new favorite description of writer's block. He's gnawed 3 quills to the hilt for a line or two, and the frost is in his nose, and until his brains be thawed, we're not getting any more. So, yeah, guy's got writer's block. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, and the other thing that I noticed in this is there's 1641 we have months maybe before the theaters are closed for 18 years. There's something sort of eerie about the fact that it mentions Faustus, which is very early in this period. And here's this play very late in this period, so you have that kind of meta bookending. It's just a little eerie that it mentions that. It's almost as if the author had some sense of we're at the end of an age.
Well, I mean, item, I must invent a plot how the papists may escape the purgatory of the Parliament. That feels pointed.
Yeah. Religious tensions were peaking at this point.
Reference to Strafford's execution.
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it did strike me that this is part of a long-running tradition of basically looking down on the man we mustn't name by the university wits. Wilde, being a DD, would have been from one of the ancient universities, and therefore you've got this whole sneery thing about those who didn't go to university, disregard them.
Well, no, the game here is, of course, one person's in defence and one person's against. I mean, they all get brickbats. I mean, even Plautus gets brickbats. Ben Jonson, they're all getting brickbats, including someone who did definitely go to university. I mean, it's definitely fitting in within the university universe. I mean, this is straight out of the playbook of so many university plays that we've done, or sketches, and this feels like this lengthy opening sketch before we actually get to the plot. There might be a plot. I don't know if there's a plot. It could just be lots of this, in which case we may lose the will to live, however witty it is. But I also just love the way the boy says he doesn't really want the guy to finish writing the play because he never gives him any parts. It's like, I don't care. I think that's really lovely. Eric.
Yeah, I just like how he's kind of like just don't let him finish the play, and then he segues into Christmas dinner and going to breakfast, which is like you can clearly see what the boy's interests are, even though he's a minor character. He's just kind of like, my mother says and my mom says, and it feels very realistic in a way, even though you kind of have, obviously, like, it's a play.
Well, also what you've got in there is, I'll go to Lois in a moment, is we've also got the et ceteras, which is, especially at names, so it's like clearly there's a topical in joke at that point that was not worthy to go into print. or was never written down because of it might have been performed, but it was never going to be recorded anywhere for safety's sake. So there's lots of potential change the joke here, extend the sequence there kind of material in this text. Lois.
Yeah, I think there are places where you just insert name of local well-known person. I mean, and that bit about the mother, I think that's really about if this writer doesn't give me a part in his play, she's not going to invite.
Oops.
Not going to invite him somewhere. I
Back
think.
to dinner for the holiday meal.
Yeah. Lois is back.
Yeah.
We lost you mid flow. The mother was not going to invite him.
I see, for Christmas dinner. Yeah. And it's clearly the sort of, oh no, not again. My internet connection is unstable. What do I do?
But I can see you fine. Continue.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry. Oh dear. Hope it's not going to be like this all the way through.
Right. Okay, well, let's gather some more data. I cut Invention off mid-flow because they were about to ask Pedanto a question.
Have you done the dialogue?
Alas, gentlemen, I'm allowed no fuel to my sacred fire of poetry, but I'm fain to curb and curtail my fancy. I scorn a dialogue as I do toys and pamphlets. I had intended to have had my scene, Delphos and Apollo and the 9 musics should have been in a masque. But we have no clothes, unless we would dress them like gypsies or butter queens, baskets on their arms. I would have had an oracle, priest, poet, and notaries. That oracle should have told fortunes. All these poets' ghosts should have come in their winding sheets. But in truth, we have not so much linen in the town as would have dressed them. I had much ado to borrow an old doublet to act a tinker in, and am fain to pay for hair to make beards of, as if the horsetail was the golden fleece.
Difficile est satiram non scribere.
He overthrows all the books.
Must poets' fancies thus be starved and tortured? Avaunt, ye bastards of Parnassus Mount, forswear the stage. Undoff your comic sock, which being sold this ignorant age will scarce bestowing of the washing of the illiterate world. Poets were once crowned and gauded too. Now not a penny to buy them ink withal, and no more sack than what they take in spoons.
He snatcheth away the quills,
as dying men do from your dirty nurses. Away with that same quill, away with it, boy. I would some prentice would light on it to cross his master's debt books when he's drunk. Or some elder brother find it to subscribe to 10 in the 100. Or it would serve a whole corporation to set their marks to a petition against bishops. May it be so full of teeth as to write a libel first, and then the sentence against the libeler's ears. But to lie sucking of the fingers thus, making a plot fit for the theatre of Roscius to present, and have no scene, no clothes, no properties, no candles scarce. 'Tis this makes Furor mad, makes Furor fret. Wit that should nothing want, doth nothing get.
But my credit lies at stake, gentlemen. There's never an empty head of my trade there hereabouts, but ventures to be witty. Therefore something must be done. Something in English too, because here's gentlemen we present at it, and something of the times, all out of nothing.
Something shall be done. Furor, shall we conjure?
Furor shall conjure, and I'll raise the poets and charm their quills to write a satire for thee. A satire that shall sting and lash and scratch, sharp like a razor, that shall make men hang themselves. And those 9 brats of Helicon shall leave their horse pool to come and grease thy buskins with their sweat.
Speak. Shall it be a tragedy or a comedy? A pastoral or a satire? Invention can do anything.
Furor Poeticus can do more, you rogue. I made an alderman a poet once, and he never said grace afterward, but it was in rhyme, nor wore his holiday breeches, but in metre.
Then, for Apollo's sake, charm open that trunk. There lies Comaedia, a most pretty girl. There she lies, fettered in that fatal trunk, and hath done ever since dialogues came in. Latin speeches under every signpost. Raise a good Furor, raise her from an urn. Every year 1 act in 5 shall be sacrifice unto this god and thee.
I'll wake her, and then thou shalt get her out.
Do.
Invention with a white wand goes about the trunk and says,
The Muses scorn to give their ears to Morpheus for sacrifice. Therefore, Comaedia, quickly rise. Upon Parnassus I do know, drowsy poppy ne'er did grow. No, nor anodyne below. Comaedia, do thy longer snort, awake, and thank Invention for it.
Who calls?
Come now, I'll get her out, I warrant thee. Come out, you slut, or else I'll knock for Vulcan to break ope the lock, and he shall rend thy comic sock, or make thee dance without a smock. Come out, for Furor's in a rage to see such goblins on a stage. Come, drink good sack and claret, and thank Poeticus Furor for it.
Enter Comaedia.
What? My servant Invention, and Furor my companion. Thanks to you both for my liberty. Who is this?
Well-wisher to your ladyship, and one that desires your help.
I am a stranger to this place and him. The prentice's 7 champions scared me so that I fled hither for safety. But he being a friend of yours, I'll do what he command me.
A cast of thine office, sweet rogue. Ceres, speak to her. Let him kiss thy hand, wench. Come, swear him first. Come, you little Pedanto, if you be a poet, you shall swear that you will never drink but till 2 o'clock in the morning. Item, you shall never be master of more than 1 suit at a time, and lie in bed while that is loused and put into the fashion. Item, you shall keep 3 or 4 to admire you and so pay for the shot. Item, endeavor to get more comedians. Item, get the pox in policy that no man may make a bridge of your nose. Item, be sure to die in debt.
I will do my endeavour.
You two pass your words for him?
Yes.
This is, fair lady, but the 2nd year of schooling. Now I'm not provided with old verses and knacks, as they are at Stamford, those stale places where verses on the 5th of November do serve an apprenticeship before they be set free. Therefore, I implore your aid.
Hang anagrams and acrostics and singing rhymes like pipers at a wake. Those have it.
I am not in tune now, but something I will do for you now. More hereafter.
What bold attempt is this, ye mortal shapes and brats of impudence? Do you not know this place is Ceres' temple, and that you dare with your foul feet trample on my threshing floor? What makes this concourse here? Where are my taskers, my threshers that do sacrifice their sweat and brawny hands to Ceres? Out with these candles, or I will blast them. Will you fire my stacks? Will you make me die a martyr? Brother Jove, lend me a lightning bolt.
A fool's bolt is soon shot. If we burn this barn, I'll get her more barns if she'll let me. This is Ceres, and she is woundy angry because we are upon her ground. We must please her. No Ceres, no barley, no malt, no ale, no poets. We must please her.
Invention, speak to her.
Let us stand all together.
Surely she lives like cats and owls by catching of mice. Ask her who ate up her oats in the high fields last year.
Peace.
Are ye dumb? Answer me. What's your business? Know ye not that I can curse your lands?
For 2pence you shall curse all the lands that we 4 have.
And charge the fertile fields to teem no more. The crooked plowman may go slice the ocean and sow the frothy furrows of the sea with as much hope of harvest as his clods, if I command the hoary earth to be no longer occupied. Provoke me not.
Great goddess of our harvest and greatest plenty, Your frowns can make invention barren too, as well as grounds. Religion drives us hither. This innocent multitude that here is set meet not for mutiny. They're no rebellious rout, but here they're set to see children play men and boys wear beards. This lady, young and soft, and phoenix downy like, is Comaedia. Innocent wench, not hurt a mouse within your walls. You shall not lose a cobnut by our sport.
Why come you here to act it? Look a stage that may deserve such glorious spectators.
Great goddess, I am that unhappy man, unworthy shepherd of a pretty flock, but have nowhere to fold them but in the temple. I'm a bold encroacher on the gods, and steal their freehold, but against my will. Though we learn and weep and bleed and play among the untombed ashes of our fathers, and with profane feet trample o'er their urns, yet there to vent our folly and build our stage were to challenge thunderbolts from Jove. We rather chose to hazard Ceres' frown than yield, that we hereafter may confess that Ceres was the Muses' patroness.
Do, and I will promise you a day's work in harvest.
Is mirth all your intent?
Yes.
Then go about it quickly. You're welcome. And I will be an actor in your play. There's none but Ceres, shall your prologue say.
And then the moment everyone's looking forward to, they all sing. Who wants to take a verse of the song? There's only two, I think there's probably technically two and a chorus. But Alan take verse 1, Brian take verse 2.
Leslie, no more shall be the Muses' mother crowned with bays. We have found one more kind than she. 'Tis Ceres best deserves our praise. 'Tis she, henceforth shall be the Muses' kindest landlady.
Parnassus is but barren ground, Apollo but a beardless boy. In Helicon we'll here be drowned, but Ceres, she shall be our joy. 'Tis she deserves the knee for this day's gracious liberty. 'Tis she henceforth shall be the Muses' kindest landlady.
Yeah, so the prologue spoken from above by Ceres.
Gallants, ye are welcome. Ceres bids you so, and hath a blessing for you ere you go. You that are clergy, if you'll merry be, I'll see your tithe shocks paid more honestly. And he that cheats you, this shall be his pain, above all knaves, to be a knave in grain. If married men will laugh, for them I pray, may on their heads fall cornucopiae. But he that from hence discontented goes, may a whole harvest of corns grow on his toes. And you, good women, if you'll sit and see, both wives and maids, you shall all fruitful be. You that good fellows are, but like our sport, you shall have the price of malt fall for it. In this my blessing to you all appears, I'll give you corn if you'll lend us ears. Fall to then, gallants, I confess your fare is coarse and homely, but you welcome are. You're welcome, and in this your welcome stands, that you would soundly ply your mouth with and hands.
So, at last, at the end of Act 1, we've got to the beginning of the play. Finally. I did quite like Ceres' prologue there, actually. It was quite nice. You know, if you promise to enjoy the play, like that's a promise you could genuinely give,
Right.
then you will get the price of malt will fall, your beer prices will go down, etc., and you will be fruitful.
But you want to be or not.
But if you don't enjoy it, you'll get corns on your. I mean, so many corn puns, things going on there. It's they're doing a lot of work there, and the various kinds of corn that you can. And ears of so many. Alan, then Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a number of play titles dotted in among here within the various speeches. And I must admit, I'm wondering whether this play was actually written for public performance or whether it was a university entertainment, because it almost has the feel of being a clever. Oh yes, we're all jolly good chaps together. We all know this literature, so we'll do all the in jokes.
Well, I think that's the point. Is I think they do know it as literature. To a degree. A lot of these plays are still current. I mean, Faustus is still. I don't know about 1641 specifically, but it's definitely been bouncing about in the previous decade. So this is all sort of common currency. So it's a question: is it like people doing jokes from referencing television from the 1980s? Because that's sort of the equivalent for us. It's that sort of that far back, or are they, or are they more actively engaged? I think there are enough clues in the text that this is a performance by young young men, before an open house of some description. That it's not just an entirely enclosed, but I don't think it's a professional logic there. I think it's an entertainment that tickets might be sold and there might be a wider audience, but it's not. It's like going to a school show or an amateur show, rather than a professional playing company. Certainly, boys' companies are basically not really active at this time in the way that they were at the beginning of the century. So yeah, I think there's enough clues in there for that. Lynn.
Yeah, Robbie once said that time is not kind to comedy, which is, yes, one of the great sad truths about theater. Because I mean, this speech is just full of like forehead slapper puns, most of which your audience is not going to get. Like being a knave in grain, they might get that, but in grain, like a dyed-in-the-wool knave, a fundamental knave, and corns on their toes, and then something about ears, and like that's a pun too, because the ear is the grain on the stalk. So I mean, I was like rolling my eyes at myself as I was reading this, like, oh, the puns, it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember which. It might be Cleese. I can't remember. It's there was a rule of comedy, which is where you say no puns, and no puns, then you go on and just do as many puns as you can. And
yeah.
It packs them in, and I kind of have to like Ceres just needs to be dressed as a giant sheaf of corn, basically.
Yeah, like a bundle of wheat, and her waist is where the bundle is. Is tied together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nicely done. But also terrible at the same time. But the thing, this kind of gag play, if you did it right, does have certainly. You just have to visually signify some of them so that they land with a proper weight. But they're not subtle. There's no subtle humour here, which I quite like. Lois and Eric.
Yeah, well, I think it's very funny, actually, but you can also get some idea of the context, I think. I mean, it is being put on by children. I think Wilde might well have been the schoolmaster, and he might have been playing Pedanto, who says that he is the schoolmaster, doesn't he? And they're presumably doing it in a barn. I mean, I take it that's the point of having Ceres there. Otherwise, I don't know what she's got to do with it. And they could well be doing it in a barn. I mean, she says you should find a better place for this distinguished company. I mean, I suppose there's some clergymen there, because some of them might be schoolmasters or local people, and then presumably the parents of these kids, some of whom are quite well off and potentially patrons and probably give money. I mean, that was something people did. They'd go to school and give money, or get the students a play day. That is, get the teacher to actually let them off for the rest of the day. So, I mean, it's quite important to suck up to the parents. So that's the sort of feeling I get from it anyway.
Yes, and of course Ceres is above, so there's got to be some kind of gallery logic that where they can enter from, as well as people, then a curtain set up for a behind space as well. So interesting questions about how staging functions. Eric, and then we'll move on.
I just like the sort of logic of, well, Ceres is the goddess of farming, therefore, wheat is important, and malt is important to make ale, and therefore ale is important to please your audience, therefore we have to please her. It feels sort of like Like something that Monty Python would do, sort of like that sort of. It's like the historian in Holy Grail, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, who has nothing to do with the story, just sort of like, is there being interviewed.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into Act 2 and see what the play that this has inspired will be. Let's see, Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Marchurch reading a letter. Marchurch muted. So, alas, that performance was going nowhere.
A fever. Would it have been the plague? Or a whole kennel of diseases? Yet the fever is a good sound card. Out upon them, these parsons live for wagers, I think. 80 and odd. His parish have been weary of him these 30 years, and I these 40. 3 or 4 that have bought a tithe pig and a poke have paid for the advowson, and they are all dead. And now, God be thanked, he hath found in his heart to be sickish. If the old rogue die, what a flock of flesh crows, learned creatures in black coats I shall have gnawing about me, like so many jackdaws about a steeple. I'll get that oath against simony well oiled and greased, that it may go down glib with the gudgeons.
And enter Ursely, to him big-bellied.
Do you hear, sir? Let me not lie in here. Your kinsman, Marpudding, would never endure me. He's never out of the kitchen, prying up and down. I'm so fearful of him, lest he should spy my belly.
She cries.
I know that it cannot be helped now, but you would be doing with me. I had been in my grave.
Come, wench. Leave your crying, fool. I know thou hast brains in thy belly. Nobody knows of it, does there?
No, sir, but I would if I had taken of that salmon in time you gave me, but now it is too late.
Come, girl.
He looked about him and kisses her.
Here, you slut. Buy thee some clouts and keep close. I'll make it the bravest bastard in England, and yet there are great ones abroad, too. What, if all fail, I'll make him my own clerk, and if he come once to have a twang in the law, I'll warrant.
Yea, sir, but you'll divide the money that we should have for warrants. I'd rather that we were made priest and then clerk. Old Still, your ruff's unpinned.
She kisses him.
Sir, I hear Master Parson's a-dying. You may put me and my belly to some poor minister. Alas, all will be a case to him. Look you here.
She pulls out a black hood and puts it on.
Do I not look well in it? I shall make a gentlewoman quickly. I look as well as somebody. I pray, sir. I even long to be in my pew and lose my gown and to take the wall.
A pretty woman. Go thy way, wench, I'll think on thee. But here we are in danger to be seen. I fear nothing but that the old pitch barrel hath fire in him still. If he recover this fit, the devil's in him. I would he might live to see all learning called in, and his chancel turned into a barn for me to lay my corn in, and he and his tribe die all mad in poor English. Go thy way, wench.
Kisses her again.
No, I kiss better than my black bag. I pray, sir, remember me.
Exit Ursely. Hot stuff. Marchurch remains alone for Scene 2.
Si non caste tamen fote. It is the statute Henrice Vicesimo. Give me a wench with a dishclout in her mouth for my money. Oh, a kitchen wench will melt sweetly, and she's cheap, too. They may talk, but I would as lief smell coal dust and ashes as civet and perfumes. Hang catamountains, give me a polecat. She's cheap, and hath sound buttocks. Come to London, there must be wine, oysters, lobsters, sturgeon, canary, anchovies, patagias. Out on it, one pie cost me £5. A periwig for Master Bod, a new set of teeth for old whore grandmother, with a poke. Come, 3 pennyworth of lechery is enough at a time of conscience. If this wench would but deliver it as once her act and deed, I would make it, and her presently go off with a presentation. And yet it is a goodly living. I had 100 pieces, my wife a satin gown, my man a new livery for one worse than his by a good deal. I cannot tell what I should do. Let me see this letter again. It does me good to read that the old priest is a-dying. I could find it in my heart for good luck to send him a mess of porridge and mercury.
He stands reading to himself. Enter 2 watchmen.
Come, neighbour Dungo, it hath often grieved me to see how negligent watchmen are in that great office they are in, setting their rusty halberds against profane alehouse doors, till they, even being drunk, have charged them to aid them home in the king's name. Since I'm called to the place, I will do the best demeanour to bring these paltry alehouses into reformation.
How now, friends? How now? What are you watchmen? Are ye watchmen these dangerous times?
Yes, if it please your worship, your good worship.
Well, Christmas is coming. I hope you will watch your time to bring me my capons and pullets.
I have a couple of fine fowl for your worship. God bless him.
Aye, well said, neighbours. Do you know what a trust the king hath committed to you?
Lay there now, we're next to the king.
No, indeed, sir, not so well as we ought.
Well, I think I shall be mayor next year, and therefore I have made a speech in readiness, and though I say it, a very learned one. Come, it may do you good. Suppose now I was mayor, and you my servants. Suppose your bills were maces, and I, having drunk my gill of muscadine and polished my venerable beard, were set. Thus I begin. Mark, neighbours, I pray you.
Sir, our ears are open, and do desire, as it were, to be attentive to you.
Whereas, or forasmuch as the chief man in a kingdom, whom the Latins call rex, we, a king, cannot or is not able to see all places, like the bird which the poets call Argus with his 100 eyes, he therefore hath appointed under him 2 officers, the one a magistrate, the other a governor. Do you mark? And these 2 are the rat traps of the kingdom, as it were, baited with the soft cheese of justice, to take those who gnaw holes in the commonwealth, the cupboard of the kingdom. And these 2, like those 2 friends I read of in profane writ, Caesar and Pompey, are to join together, fratres in malo, as one saith, brethren in coats of mail, to keep off danger. And forasmuch as I am called to one of these duties under the vulgar title of mayor, give me leave to tell you, according to the statute of Richard VI, what a mayor is. A mayor is a magistrate with 2 legs, saddled and bridled for his master's service, very stable, without stumbling, being foremost in a team of aldermen. Now this mayor comes to his office 2 ways. Either he is chosen or elected. For you must know 2 places are capable of a mayor, the one a corporation, the other a body politic. Chosen by 2 sorts of men, the one brethren, the other fraternity. Since therefore I am elected, I will not nod away my time, but spend it as that famous Catiline did when he was mayor in Rome, and punishing usury 160 years ago. And so, brethren, hoping that some of you will help me, and some other of you assist me, I rest. God save the king.
The king? I say, God save your worship. But I'm an ignorant man. But in my opinion, it is a rare speech. Is it not, neighbor? Our vicar, for all his black coat, hath not such a word in his belly.
Well, friends, I think this will do. If the fools had chosen me burgess, I would have speeched it in better stuff than this is. All's one. Caetere quaecunque volunt. Go, look to your business.
God bless you,
God bless you, sir. And many good mayors
may
you make.
Exeunt watchman.
Alone. Well, this wench's belly is a vile pullback. But here comes my nephew. What bookish, too. cookery or housewifery, I trow.
Enter Marpudding reading.
Well, he's worth 20 wenches. I think the best porridge maker in the world. I'll listen a while.
How to make a hen lay twice a day after St. Andrews. But a cock to his crew, that her treading is true, but 'tis that which they say doth cause the hen to lay. And when your hen hath laid her egg, she'll cackle and stretch out her leg, and fill her full of grain, and something she will lay again. I'll let maids look after the second leg, or I'll... A pretty book this is. Wonder why it sets not down what eggshells are good for. Goes to my heart to see so many eggshells thrown away and broken. How to make a good pottage servant. Aye, marry. Take a green puddle out of a bog, thickened with the spawn of a frog. Let there be dishclout in it, and of a barley flour a pint. This is costly. Bullock's liver is good stuff. Boil them till they be enough. The duckweed liquor being green is like potherbs quickly seen. The dishclout will both fat the pot, and make brewis too, I wot. The liver will make it of meat to taste, and if they will not eat it, let them fast. Well, I'll have this by heart.
Why, how now, nephew? What book have you got there? The Practice of Piety.
Piety? No, the practice of good housewifery, I trow. Excellent book this is. I pray you, sir, speak to your servants. They call me pot queen, and I know not what if I look but a little after them. Would you think they cannot fry a bit of pudding without butter? There's your maid Ursely, the kitchen wench, is more sauce than pig, and they cozen me too. I'll be sworn I groped the hens this morning, and there are a dozen of them with egg, I'm sure, and I can find but 5. Your Scotchman Hob, too, since he came into England, hath learned to pare his cheese. Uncle, they're corn-fed. Pray you chide them.
I will, John, I will. What have we to dinner, I pray you? Let us spare a little. Next year I must be mayor, and then we will be liquorish.
Why, there is sausages which you left cold last night, and good warm milk porridge. I was making a pudding too, but I came to look you. The parson is dead, and there's one stays with a letter to speak to you. Pray order it so that I may have something too.
Good news, I'll warrant you.
Exit Marchurch.
Well, I must read good thrifty cookery against next year.
He pulls out his book again.
How to wash clothes without soap. Take hogstung a good deal.
Enter Ursely. Thank God. Stirring a pudding.
What you follow me for? I never be quiet. What do you want, I wonder?
Oh, muted Ursely.
Want? I would my quarter were come out. I would see you anger, I would dwell here. Your uncle sends word he'll have dinner. Have a minister dine here. And is this pudding fitting? Never an egg in it, nor a bit of suet. For love of God, give us some, and some money for plums.
Plums? Yes. Do you long? Come, you'll stir it handsomely.
He takes it from her and stirs it.
Now make this a good pudding, I'll warrant you. Here, go you and put these onions to the pot.
He gives her some onions out of his pocket.
Nay, then, take apron and all.
She pulls off her apron, and he spies her great belly.
Ah! Brave whisking! What, are you a child? So I'm an honest man, big-bellied. This is good gear.
Yes, sir, that I am with child, and to your cost, too. I'll vex him, since he hath spied it.
Mind you, whore. What will be seen?
Goodly Master John, how strange you make it. Well, I'll never trust man again. You forgot what you did to me, I warrant you, but I have something to show for it. You are like to be a father, I promise you. Do you remember the pantry last Lent, when you wanted a bit of flesh?
Oh, you impudent jade! When? What? Where? Did I ever touch you?
Did you not? How dare you stand in it? Did you not? I did not tell you I was with child and longed for a turnip, which you gave me and bid me come close.
Oh, damned whore! It's a curse that I've had to do with thee, you quean.
It seems you had knowledge of me then. Well, your tongue shall not suffer you to lie.
I see. Did I have a meddle or make with thee?
Make with me? I that you did. We joined to make a child.
I joined you, strumpet. The devil is in thee.
He was when you were in me, but never else.
A pox on your pudding.
He throws it down.
I see, I'll go tell me uncle.
Nay, I'll be there before you, and all the town shall know it. They know partly you are never out of the kitchen, prying up and down after my tail, snooking in every hole. Cock queen. Who should do it but you, Sarah?
She offers to go out.
Nay, but stay, Ursely. One word. Did I ever touch you? No, never in all my life. Do me forever.
Did you? Aye, and did I not tell you I would find another father? And so I will yet, if you will be ruled. Meddle or not meddle, how will you help yourself if I lay it to you? Come, come.
Aye, that's true. You may undo me if you will. But I hope you will have more honesty.
Yes, yes, I'll teach you to meddle in women's matters. I swear, unless you give me the keys of all, I will open all.
Well, Ursely, I could never have smelt out this plot. Name me not, and I will.
Will you let me have butter
Aye,
and oatmeal
aye,
and plums or anything?
aye.
Well, look you do. I have that will keep you in awe. Give me the pantry key now.
Well, would I'd never seen it. Will you not wrong me?
No, if you will hold your tongue and take no notice, I must bind you to the piece. For if my master know it, I'll lay it to you.
Pox of all your gypsy jades. I must be tongue-tied for nothing. This good pudding spoiled too.
Come, few words to a bargain. Will you hold your tongue, and I will hold mine?
Here is the keys. Devil take 'em. Very well. I'll be revenged.
Exit Marpudding.
So a brave plot. Now I'm provided with all things against the hour, and this gudgeon is in his net safe. But if I can but be laid up and up again, I'll go off with the living. All's right.
Exit Ursely. End of Act 2. Okay, this is throwing a whole level of social issues that I wasn't expecting to be interacting with this play on. I mean, we've got a son who's is interfering with women's matters. You know, he's interested in cooking. I mean, that's clearly against the natural order of things at all. I mean, he's clearly reading a very off-brand book. I mean, goodness only knows where he's getting his good housekeeping tips from. It's reacting to actual books that are existing and there's a market for, so maybe there's some sort of strange satire going on here. It's we're getting into social issues to do with the way well, basically we've got master-servant relations going on here in ways that are considerably more problematic than I think this play is really engaging with. So it's engaging with a whole series of strange things that are, I mean, it's very spicy, that first introductory scene. You know, there's no, and then she exits, and he really does present himself as total arsehole. So yeah, it's a really interesting series of backs and forths that I'm very curious about. Who was waving? People were waving. I did see hands. I can't remember who any of them were. Who wants to say something? Someone wants to say something. I've said a lot of words. Lois.
Well, I mean, the cookbook is obviously something like cheap recipes for times of austerity or something, because that's clearly what it's about, how to save money on just about everything by doing things in the most appalling way. And it looks, it may be a satire on Puritans and, you know, just attempting to lower the standards of, well, just about everything, the household and the church and so on.
Yes, there's very pointed references to Christmas and here, and I'm sort of wondering if that's that there are early rumblings on cutting back on having fun, which is you know, a come in to greater or lesser degrees. Other thoughts? Lois again.
Yeah, well, at one point, I think especially when they were stirring the porridge, I thought we were going to get the first example of the famous cooking scene in pantomimes.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting that, and you know, he does throw it to the ground, and of course that's his saddest thing at the end of the scene, going, but I've also destroyed the pudding, and it's like, and this sort of bargaining for cooking material, you know, give me access to things so I can make a proper pudding. So yeah, and then this whole sequence with the watch about I would make a great mayor. Which I'm not even sure is properly set up. It just sort of, he just starts doing it. It's sort of, I'm clearly missing something. Also, just watch out for who's called Dungo later on. I think there may be some speech prefix issues. I'll go to Lynn, then Lois, then Eric.
Well, no,
okay, then I'll go to Lois, then Eric.
Yeah, that's another thing I think which shows he knows the Parnassus plays, because there was a scene in there in which somebody, in fact, I think it's the audition scene where Burbage and Kemp are auditioning the two scholars, and one of them says, you know, you should play this foolish justice, and you sit there and then you do this incredibly pompous, idiotic speech full of mistakes and so on, because it's exactly what we get here. I think it actually was a kind of comic turn, which is one reason why it can come out of nowhere, because it is sort of like the cooking scene in pantomime. I mean, you're sort of expecting it.
Eric.
Yeah, you don't really expect it, but then like as soon as the Watchmen leave, and obviously there's like it adds to like sort of a bit of world building, because it tells you that there's dangerous times, and aside from that, as soon as they leave, he goes back to Marchurch, goes back to worrying about the wench and her belly, and it's like it doesn't really have any impact on the plot at all, aside from the fact that he's like, I want to be a mayor, and we must impress people with our, you know, knowledge and other things. But yeah, it's just kind of, I enjoyed that speech. The soft cheese of justice. It's funny.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lovely turn of phrase. There's some lovely, you know, it's just the sort of the sort of social dynamics of what these scenes are doing is slightly more awkward now than I think it was then. I say slightly. However, I do think Marpudding did bring up a very important question, which is, I wonder why it sets not down what eggshells are good for.
Yeah, I've always wondered that.
It's a really good question, because, you know, they just, as you know, I'm sure that there may be advice out there. If you know something, do put it in the comments below. You know, because we're interested. We really don't care, but it's interesting stuff. But no, I mean, I think there's something interesting about what Marpudding is doing here. You know, because he just quite likes cooking and doing these things, and it's sort of the play is castigating him for that effectively. And it's an interesting theme as what's going on there. Eric and then Lynn.
Yeah, there's also that thing of like, you know, it does humor on different levels. So you've got like, you know, the puns, you've got the scatology, because you've got like sort of, oh yeah, and when your hen hath laid her egg, feed her, and then she'll lay something again. Wah, wah, wah. But I mean, it does different levels of humor, which is actually quite funny and smart. I mean, okay, there's obviously the misogyny and problematic stuff, as we've said. But how many comedies from this period are not problematic, I ask you? But yeah.
Yes. Do as we. The opposite of what we say is sort of, you know, the thing of where to go with this. Lynn.
Well, at the beginning of this scene, I got the impression that Marpudding just likes to putter in the kitchen. He's just interested in that. But then, as it goes on and he interacts with Ursely, I got the feeling that what he's doing there is like interfering with the people whose job it is to prepare meals, and saying, "Oh, you're using too much of that expensive ingredient. Like no, that's too. Like, I'm trying to make a pudding without any eggs or fat in it. Like, how's that going to taste?" He's just a cheapskate. He's a miser, and he doesn't want to let them use good ingredients to make good food, and like her blackmail is, I won't tell anybody that this is you if you let me do my job properly
Yes.
and have access to the food stores.
Yes, give me the key to the cupboard, basically. I mean, that's
Get out of the
what.
kitchen. Get out
Yeah.
of the kitchen.
And within a household like this, someone like Ursely would have the keys and would be doing all the potentially this kind of logic of looking after the house, and which should be beneath the role of the son of the household. Alan, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm getting the feeling that Ursely is doing a massive distraction exercise, because from the previous scene with her and the father, with Marchurch, I have a very strong suspicion that he is the father of the putative child. And she's running a massic distraction and using as an excuse to bully what she perceives as the weaker member of the household.
Oh yes, no, I don't think there's any doubt there. Anyway, we need to move on, so hold on to any thoughts for later. Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Bookworm alone, as from the patron.
Ah, true old Menander. 4 lines of Menander in Greek, right? Thank you. The blood.
Yeah. Yes, apologies for that. I do not have access to those 4 lines of Menander, but there's some Menander. Pick some.
Yeah, right. Okay. Anaximander, Euphues, Eudaimon. Right. Anyway, the blood and life of man is powerful gold, of which you have none, I dare be bold. You may a while breathe, or of which you have none, I dare be bold. You may a while breathe, or move, or walk, or so, but for a dead man amongst men you'll go. 'Tis so, 'tis so. Greek, Hebrew, fool! How have I spent my time, my precious midnight hours? 10 tedious winters, burnt out 1,000 lamps, outwatched the moon when she sat longest up and been most pale. My constant candle was a surer friend to watchmen, bellmen, and the drowsy waits. The ominous night crow, envying my light, would try to scare me from my Aristotle, beating herself against my window bars, whilst I within have leaned upon this elbow, searching philosophy as dark as night, and conning Plato as boys do their grammars, brooding each line and sitting on each verse as close as moth or canker, till mine eyes with so much labor oft would sweat a tear upon my naughty task. At last, God wot, my father dies, and leaves 200 pounds more for his hopeful boy to buy him books, and robbed his other sons to make me rich. Then did I mount the spheres and pose the stars, catechize planets what their natures were. I left 100 of my angels there. Then did I search the oracle of heaven and plumbed the ocean of divinity, provided still against the day I should be called to do the church some service. But now I see I studied poverty and purchased beggary at too dear a rate, coming to Marchurch for this living, with learning, manners, orders, bishops' letters. Oh, sir, says he, bishops are out of credit, and for your learning it will serve in the belfry to teach young children. But the living's gone, unless your money call it back again. Why, sir, said I, I'll give 400 pounds. I'm sure my knowledge cost me little less. Pox of knowledge, cries the greedy churl. Farewell. What shall I do? I cannot curse him nor myself. Poor wretch, he knows not the price of virtue, and I do too well. 'Tis dear, 'tis dear. The money I have spent would have bought me land or living, house or wife. It would have maintained me in scarlet and livery, and lasted a while in hawks or horses. I could have sworn it away, or drunk it either, or played it out for pots at shuffleboard or billiards. But it's gone, and I as far to seek as men in leather breeches at the statutes. Here's all that's left, some 13 shillings. It is in vain to grieve. I'll pawn my clothes and buy some others, and with my little sum of money go trade in toys and pamphlets, a profession that will get more money than disputing. And though I have read much and studied long, I will give all my learning for a song.
And exit Bookworm. Again, we're feeling the influence of the Parnassus plays really heavily here. Those who don't know them, they're basically a lengthy exposition as to why the post-university job market is rubbish. Yeah, it does feel very much within that universe. Lois.
It's topical, though, because having a letter from a bishop would have been important once, but now bishops are out because the Long Parliament has met and has been trying to sort of wreck the church establishment.
But yeah, we get a character who does this lengthy little bit of on-stage stand-up and then exits. Will we see them again this act? Will we see them again in the play? Who knows? Let us continue as we go into Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Marchurch and Sir Hobnail.
Is he dead? Are you sure?
Yea, indeed, as Sylvia Synagoga saith very well upon that place, vivis exerit, he is dead.
Dead, Sir Hobnail? Why, a dog is dead. Fie upon it, are you a scholar and no better expression in your mouth?
Why, truly, your worship's observation is very good, though the English read it dead, yet the Geneva translation which we most follow renders it departed, so that he's not dead only, but departed also, if please your worship.
I made this mongrel once a promise of the living, and now he's come for it. Please me, Sir Hobnail. Yes, it would please me if you would depart, too. I shall never have such an honest man as he that is gone. A very knave.
I desire your worship to consider my suit.
Why, what is your suit?
His suit? It's a very poor one. That's ready to depart, I'm sure.
Even, sir, that you would be pleased to stand my friend, Ames Capitulari, as the master of the sentences hath it.
Capitulari? Pray thee, fellow, leave this canting. I understand no Latin, but summa totalis.
But, sir, why, sir, the summa totalis is that I may succeed him in your living.
In the living? Why, how dare you think of such a thing? With what face canst thou ask it? There's never a scholar of you all deserves such a living. Aye, this fellow hath been curate and taught school here this dozen years. He may have hornbooked himself into some money. Hark you, Sir Hobnail, how long have you been curate here? A good while, I trow?
Why, sir, as I remember, some 12 years. I bought these clothes then, and they are almost worn out now.
Well, Sir Hobnail, you are a moneyed man, they say. Can you lend me 10 pieces?
Alas, sir, opus est mihi viginti minis.
Come, opus and usus must go together with me, and viginti minis be the date of case, too. Besides, Sir Hobnail, how dare you come to me for the living?
Why, sir?
How oft have I heard you, with blushing, rail and complain against me? Against usury, principally, which I put up a good while and said nothing. But I must have one will be quiet and peaceable. Preach but once a month.
One? Within this 12 months, you might have had 100 would have preached but once a quarter.
Again, Sir Hobnail, the women of the town cry out against you exceedingly. You have almost killed their children with whipping of them. I can tell you, you've made a rod of your own.
I warrant you, sir, I can please the women. I have both their hands and their voices.
Aye, their voices to scold you, and their hands about your ears. Come, Sir Hobnail, I must use your own language now. If you have the living, untruss. Untruss.
What, sir?
Why, your purse strings. Nothing else.
Why, sir, I have nothing but a little aes presenti, as the schoolmen say. But you promised me once, when I was a witness for you at the Assize, that I should have it for nothing.
Nay, if you be at promises, I promise you, you shall come short on it. Come, come, you're a saucy knave, Homily. The living is now mine, and therefore I give you warning here to provide for yourself. You shall no longer curate here, sirrah. Get you gone.
Nay, I beseech you, sir.
Nay, I beseech you, be gone, or I'll beat that Latin nose of yours to your English face.
Latin nose? You ventured far to have said a French nose. Will you not be as good as your word, sir?
Yes, that I will, sirrah.
And beats him.
Very well, Canker. Have I this payment for my service?
Exits a homily.
So, I'm glad I am delivered of this briar. If Ursely can but be delivered well, we are safe. Why, this it is to countenance a scholar. A chimney sweeper shall have it first, or anything that goes in black. This fellow, if I should give it him freely, as God forgive me that ever I should have such a thought, would be the first man that would make Ursely do penance, and me help to repair Paul's. No, if I can but get an honest book-learned fellow, that will come off with more gold and less Latin. It's right. I'll look to this rascal. I know he'll come anon and recant, and offer money too. But I'll serve him a trick.
He knocks with his stick.
Why, Hobnail there.
I'll come anon.
There comes a fellow that I'll set upon the service. A northern fellow that hath got well under me. I've made him constable this year. He's a fellow that never could endure anything in black, but a black jack or pot. As brave a scarecrow as ever hung upon a dunghill.
Enter Hobnail, who is, of course, authentically Scottish. Good luck.
God give you Ian Master, did you call?
Aye, Hob, aye.
I was at Mumbledy Peg with a barley bag pudding below. Much good do it me.
What news from the field, Hob?
Why, there's Brock, your grizzly mare. Cannot gang for kibes. We must get some brimstone and train oil and anoint him, I trow. We have ploughed all the land next to the dyke nook today.
But hark you, Hob, you must undertake a business for me today, and do it lustily.
What's that, Mary?
Why, this is it, Hob. Our parson's dead.
Marry, the duel rest his crag. He did so spouse me a while agone. I could not con him an answer. He asked me who gave me my name.
Nay, hold, but hear me speak. There's curate Homily.
Aye, as honest a man as ever break crust.
Pish, a knave. A very knave.
That's no matter. Though he be a knave, he's an honest man for all that.
Hey, be quiet a little, Hobnail. He was here a while ago, railing and complaining against you mightily.
Against me, the duel on him. What does he ken of me?
Why, he says, I let thee have too cheap a pennyworth of thy farm, and that thou art so covetous. Besides, he comes to claim the living of me. I think he was drunk, too.
Hark you, sir, I am constable, and I'll have a pair of stocks made with 10 holes, and he shall have a tithe. And if he have not his pass about him, I'll set his hands fast by his heels.
No, I'll tell you a better way. Stand you here with your whip, whilst I go down and watch for him. I think he'll come this way presently again. If he does, yerk him soundly and forewarn him my ground.
Well, let me alone. I'll look the sloven. I'll sponge his gaskins.
Prithee do, soundly, spare him not.
Exit Marchurch.
I'll warrant you, master. I have not quite dinned yet. This Marpudding cuts us vile short. I's womble in the crop still. But I shall have the better stomach to him. Abuse me and my master. What the dual harm have I done him? I's gar mumble the sloven if he gang his way. I's line his black coat for him. I's make him pass standing 2 hours a Sunday to spoil our victuals. Here he comes. I step aside and listen a bit.
Enter Sir Homily.
Well, valere valentum non est fraus, so saith an author. He that does promise make and then deceive, to cozen him is not knavery by your leave. What an ass was I to think learning would get man a living. If Parnassus, underline, if Parnassus was this churl's ground, he'd plough it up and make the poor muses gather stones out on it, as they do Irish women. Oh, if I had come with my 30 or 40 pieces, I should have been some Sundays bidden to my dinner to my own tithe pig. marry, and then I might have had set at the lower end of the table with the folks and have said grace. Nah. I'm resolved to have a plot. If I could meet with Hob.
Hob will meet with you presently.
Yonder are two more scholars that he hath turned away. Faith, I've got a plot that will fit his worship, and mayhap make him turn his ruff into a band, otherwise called an halter.
Hey ho, weary!
And whips a homily.
Nay, good Hob, good Hob.
How now, sirrah? Plain Hob? Do you know who you speak to? It might be Master Constable Hob in your mouth. Goodman curate, you show your manners.
Nay, pray, what do you mean? Will you kill me?
No, sirrah. I will flay you alive. Abuse me and my master no more, sirrah. You shall have my farm too cheap, but you shall pay dear enough for it.
Whispers him.
No, never in my life I'm come to speak with you for your good.
Aye, sirrah. This is for your good too. Ha!
Nay, hold, I'll make thee a gentleman.
Faith, he seems to be no very gentle man by his whipping thee.
Come quickly, make me a gentleman straight. Come get up, I'll give you leave.
Why, thus it is. Our old parson's dead, and the living is in your master's disposal. He will not part with it without money, and I have none myself, or if I had, he will not let me have it. If you'll make yourself now renter for this living, none can have 2 livings apiece. The price of steeples will fall. This but 30 or 40 pieces. You are a moneyed man, I'm sure, and you're made forever. You cannot miss of it. What a brave thing it is to be a parson.
Ha! Cud's foot, it's a brave plot. But how can that be? I'm not book learned to love my single psalter. I must read prayers with a fescue.
No, trouble not yourself about prayers. Can you lie long in bed with an handsome wife, eat good fat pigs, ride a hunting? That's all you shall do. Let me alone with the service. I'll be your curate.
This is good gear. But how must I do for sermons?
What do you talk of sermons? Talk what comes at tongue's end, can't you?
Aye, but I have no Latin to spout at him, if he suppose me.
Latin, it is that which undoes many a man. Take heed of that which you breathe while you breathe. I'll learn you a word or two shall serve, I'll warrant you.
Aye, but he'll ken me to be Hob, his man, I doubt.
No, you shall have a false beard on. It shall make you look very grave, and I'll lend you my clothes. I'll put on a grey cloak and wait on you as your man. You shall call yourself by some other name. Nay, never fear. I'll warrant you speed, and I'll stand behind you and tell you be good to shows good store of money and bargain with him presently.
Why, methinks I feel myself creeping into a gentleman. Master Dr. Parson Hob already. I may be a bishop before I die. Why, what a vile knave was I to whip so honest a man. Here, Sir Hobnail, be sworn you shall whip me now because I whipped you. Be sworn you shall. Nay, cut sticks you shall.
Nay, but your clothes are thicker than mine. Mine are but thin.
Why, I'll strip me to the very sark.
No, I'll forgive thee freely. Let's go and dress ourselves quickly.
Offers to go.
Nay, stay, hark you. Great words butter no parsnips. I's not buy a pig in the poke. Have you seen the comedy?
What comedy?
Why, the comedy you can, the living.
Why, it's worth £100 a year, man.
Why, must I wear this grey hat too?
No, you shall have mine. 'Tis a steeple crown, and will do better for a gentleman.
I had rather you teach me a little Latin now. I's can't be as we gang.
Why, in your discourse, if he asks you who you are, you may say, Ego sum clericus.
What's that?
I am a clerk.
Clerk? Why, I thought I should have been a parson. Must I be a clerk?
Pish, but wait, then thou shalt say, Ego sum presbyterus.
What's that? Bread and butter?
No, it's Greek and Latin too. I am a priest.
Aye, marry. I would have the priest forget he was ever a clerk.
And if he use you well, cry gratias ego domini.
So, but if he asks how old I am?
Why, cannot you tell that?
No, by my troth, it's so long ago That I've forgotten.
Why, then you may say I'm about 50, and the older you are, the cheaper you'll have it.
Aye, that's true. Come, let us gang. But what's the Latin thing?
Gratias ego domine.
Oh. Gratias ago homily.
And they exit. What's the Latin thing? A question that many of our audience might be asking. This is the first scene where I've started going, okay, this is hard. The intricacies of this, I want the right kind of priest, because it's like they're all talking about this dead priest. The whole priest dead. Are you sure he's dead? Yes, he's definitely dead. Are you sure? Would you like me to define the word dead? Back and forth that goes on, and then it's but we'd only give you the job because you don't like me very much. We'll need to get another. We need to drive this one out, and it's like I'm very curious as to the way, but I am also slightly lost as to what these scenes are doing. I'm not quite sure what Sir Homily has persuaded Hobnail to do. Here, I was slightly confused what the counterplot here is. I'll go to Alan then Lynn.
I think the use of Latin is simply the age-old technique of bullshit baffles brains. Marchurch, I don't think is particularly learned himself. And therefore, something in a foreign language, oh, yeah, that's impressive. I'll give him the job.
Lynn.
Yeah, I don't know why, but Sir Homily has persuaded Hobnail to disguise himself and apply for the church living, and get that job. And it's so to be a sort of beard for Sir Homily. It's like, once you've got the job, then I'll be your curate. I'll do the preaching. I'll do that. Like, maybe Sir Homily just wants to do the actual work and is willing to let Hobnail have the privileges, the lifestyle. I don't know, but he's trying to talk Hobnail into bribing Marchurch into giving him this job that's available.
And teaching him some random phrase Latin to get through it, and you can see all the comedy potential there. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, Marchurch obviously has that name, like Mar Prelate, Mar Priest, and so on, as someone doing his best to damage the church. Well, Sir Homily has just been fired, hasn't he? I mean, Marchurch has just sacked him from his job as curate. So he may simply be wanting it back, by this means. It may be that he's hoping once Sir Homily or once Hobnail has bribed his way into the job, that they can change places and he can actually have the living. He may have some plan for that. I don't know. But at any rate, this is obviously better than nothing from his point of view.
Yes, Eric.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe it's just that, because I assume a curate or a parson would be living in the church, so it was basically him being homeless as well if he gets kicked out. I don't know. I'm assuming.
I don't know what the early modern convention was, actually.
Usually, I think you were generally provided with lodging. I mean, a schoolmaster was provided. They always talk about how low the salary was, but it did come with somewhere to live. And I think the same was certainly true of a parson, and I think with a curate as well.
Lots of weird things. I mean, it's like we've suddenly got the return for occasional, not desperately funny asides from Furor, who just turns up to. It's like he's popping his head through the curtain, just going, "Duh!" And it's really weird because it's not set up at all.
I mean, I had forgotten he was on stage. I was forgotten he was around.
Appeared.
But I don't think he is on stage. I mean, he really does feel like he's just sticking his head through the curtain. It's not like there's any logic to him being there. Is he doubling as somebody else? Because I was sort of wondering if he was one of the characters in the previous scene, and he'd just gone off and changed while Ceres was doing the prologue, and that he's just free this scene. So there was something really weird about that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having someone do random asides to comment on the action, but it kind of needs to either be established. He has 3 lines in the entire scene.
Yeah. Maybe he and the other people are all sitting in the audience and popping up or sitting on the stage or something.
That was my thought. Yeah.
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 It's it's a thing. That what was the other, and also just Hobnail as the random comedy Scot, and it's sort of thinking, well, if it was the early 17th century, I would feel it felt more it would feel more pointed. I'm sort of interested as to, is there a political significance that is slightly different in 1641 that I am unaware of? Obviously, at the beginning of James's reign, they were quite unpopular for various reasons. I'll go to Rachel. Rachel, were you responding to that thought, or do you have another thought of your very own?
One of the things that got Charles in trouble was he ran a really unsuccessful campaign against the Scots.
Ah.
Yeah.
No.
He was trying to enforce the Act of Uniformity on the Scots, and the Scots were resistant, whatever.
Oh, right.
The prayer book, yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, Marchurch only refers to him as a Northern fellow, not necessarily as a Scot.
I think there was an earlier reference to Hobnail, wasn't there? Before that one?
Hob, you're a Scot, something.
Yeah, it was in the previous scene.
And he has verbal tics that are like gang for go and stuff like that. So yeah.
Gang feels quite pointed in that way. Anyway, Lynn.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it just things with the Scots aren't great. The king at the time, not for very much longer. Unlucky Chuck, as we call him.
All of them were. I mean, the previous two, Charles.
No, not the current guy. This is Charles the First. Yeah, hard luck, Chuck. And the Scottish were devoutly Protestant. Presbyterianism has really taken hold in Scotland, and Charles was definitely high church, bishops, hierarchy, all that, and the Scots hated that. So there. If you were on Charles's side, or kind of near that, you would definitely want to make fun of the Scots.
Eric, you've been waving for ages. I will go to you, and then I'll go to Lois.
To add to that, wasn't this around the time when they had the Covenanters and all that stuff sort of running around trying to sort of anti-establishmentarian, whatever the word is, to sort of don't get rid of Charles by this point, but like definitely anti-Charles at that. And what I was thinking was also it was set up earlier. Well, basically in the mini induction that Invention wanted to get like more money for the Scots.
Lois.
Yeah, I think this is the year when Milton is writing his pamphlets against bishops and the episcopacy and the whole structure of the Church of England. But the covenant, the Scots, I don't think that's till 1643, and it was the deal that brought the Scots into the war, actually on the side of Parliament, and everybody had to take the covenant, which actually promised to establish Presbyterianism as the state religion, and there was a lot of doubt about obviously the desirability of doing that. But I don't know, it seems to me that Hobnail is really just behaving like a standard country yokel and doesn't seem to have any particular religious views at all. He doesn't sound to me like a Presbyterian, in fact.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was sort of wondering whether there was, because I couldn't see a connection. I wasn't seeing a sort of connect with the sort of politics of the time. So maybe he's just a generic comedy. Maybe there was someone who could do a comedy Scottish accent that was at the time hilarious. He said, almost certainly not. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually that much dialect Scots. There seems to be an awful lot of random Mummerzet in there as well.
Yeah.
Well,
it's basically, the note would be, this is someone who doesn't speak London.
Yeah.
Though if it's based in Cambridge, then they might not be thinking that logic. Eric.
Yeah, compared to, I was thinking like the other, I can't remember which play it was, but we had one with possibly Misogynist or something. I'm not sure. Where we had a sort of random Scottish churchman who sort of turned up and didn't have very much English in his speech, and I had to struggle through. I remember it because I had to struggle through it at the time, and yeah, it was kind of like he too also argued that he couldn't read, and like it doesn't really matter what you say during a sermon, like sort of people will listen to you anyway and that sort of thing. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I say Hobnail does not seem particularly interested in that that at all. It's more about reputation and other things that he's moderately interested in. But okay. Any other general thoughts before we go into final thoughts? Okay. This is a it's interesting because I've sort of enjoyed it, but then also I'm really not sure what the hell to do with it, because it is very wrapped up in its time. I think we've definitely hit with Act 3 a scene that is really difficult to translate, literally and metaphorically. It's doing a lot of stuff. There is a plot. I was surprised that it arrived, and it does seem to be reasonably well worked out. It's not that complicated, so yeah. I'm genuinely. I haven't got a theory or I haven't got an idea of how to stage this yet. So I don't know what context in which to do this, apart from the usual one when it's probably produced by boys is just fine, ask Edward's boys to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if we've already done it. I haven't checked, but it's that kind of logic where you kind of need. It kind of has to be young actors. It really doesn't make any sense if it's done by adults, because all the stuff about beards is important. They're talking about, you can put on a fake beard, and it's clearly that's a big thing, is putting on the silly fake beards. And look at us in beards. We are old men. And that's kind of the charm of it. Which also gets us through some of the more problematic questions about the society it is portraying as it goes. Not sure myself yet, but I've enjoyed the ride so far. It's very derivative. I think I think it is derivative of so many, not necessarily in plot. The plot doesn't immediately ring any bells yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's also nicked whole cloth from something else. But in terms of it's constantly referencing other things, which is both a delight and a problem, because if you don't know what those other things are, you will be quite bored. So, Lynn, any final thoughts?
I pretty much would have said a lot of what you just said, Rob. I'm enjoying the references, but I'm kind of steeped in the period. And some of the characters are really fun. Hobnail is fun. I love me a comedy northerner. Whether he's technically Scottish or not.
It's in the north.
Yeah, it's like, but I can't do this, but I can't do that. No, it's fine. It's fine. All right, I'll be the and the thing about and it just like the thing about what writer's block is like. Yeah, it's like we've all been there. And the basic, the spine of the plot, we have this benefice available, but the person in charge of assigning that is going to demand a bribe. This happened all the time. It was actually a huge social problem. This was really kind of in the air in this period, throughout this period, that how do you put a damper on this kind of corruption in a state with really no regulation, no kind of top-down regulation that we're familiar with. You kind of had to trust people in positions of authority to do the right thing, and how often does that happen? So it's interesting to me because I'm interested in the history of the period. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I wouldn't know what to do with it. Yeah, basically, what you said.
Yes. I have said that induction. I'm going to call it an induction. Act 1 is not Act 1. It's an induction. It's got absolutely. Anyway. So you have to sort of restructure the acts here potentially. Anyway. if you want it to fit a thing. But that opening induction, I thought was actually could be recycled and used somewhere else. I think if you could utilise that almost not within itself, but as a prelude to some play that you want a fun intro to, because I think it was full of things that you could actually. The jokes do kind of work, and with a bit of tweaking, cutting, it's all sort of there. It's just the question of whether the rest of the play quite lands on that basis as well is another question. Brian, any final thoughts?
I'm just going to echo the same conclusion we're all coming to, that it's in process and I don't quite know what to do with it. I'll confess that I had a look at Act 1 last night. I read that through just to get a sense of where we were headed. And my first reaction on reading was that it was going to drive me persistently to footnotes in the way that topical comedies often do, in the kind of I'm for Lancashire and that's to say for good shoe leather sort of reference. So I was very pleasantly surprised as we read through it, I found many bits I was laughing at. I love when Ceres threatens to curse the lands and the people on stage say, "Go ahead, we haven't got it." That was really funny. And that Ceres changes from her threatening mood to accept her role as prologue and put forth the comedy was delightful. So for a while, I was really with it and thought, oh my goodness, this has a sensibility I admire, and I look forward to seeing what comes next. And then we got into the plot, and it's okay, but it hasn't got much of that same life that I sometimes felt in the prologue, and that's where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, I think that's all fair stuff. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the more we read into it, the more I'm thinking this is sort of prototype Footlights. It's got very much that feel of the college review. That opening scene, the opening act with all the clever quotations and references to play titles, playwrights, and so on, very much has the feel of sort of JCR type humour. And I think going forward, there's been 2 or 3 sequences in there which I almost get the feel that, this is someone who can do this particular shtick. It's the guy who can do the comedy regional accents, non-geographically specific. Or this is the one who can effectively do the same gig that Alan Bennett did in Beyond the Fringe of the rather drippy vicar. So it's got that sort of college review feel to it for me. And I'm not sure that they ever work that well when you're going out to a general audience, because so much is based on a shared background of knowledge. I was going to say learning, but learning by rote in many cases.
Eric, any final thoughts?
I think this is sort of like, well, I mean, since we're talking about Scotland as well, the sort of, and we had that unpleasant satire of Three Estates or something, where we had like this huge prologue type thing, which wasn't really a prologue. It was just like sort of.
It was performed at a separate time, so it was sort of it was more an advert, as it were.
Yeah, and that had nothing to do with the play, which sort of remind like the prologue to this. Basically, all of Act 1 has really nothing to do with this play. You could like extricate it perfectly fine, and it sort of doesn't do very much setup either. So it kind of sets up this universe where you really want to know what's going to happen, and then, well, you don't really understand what's happening, but it's still kind of funny, at least in my experience. I don't know what you would do with it, but I know what you would do with the sort of Sir Hobnail scene. It's basically the equivalent of someone going, okay, you're going to go to the job interview and you're going to say all these keywords, okay? Just sort of, and they'll hire you. It's fine. They just don't want me. I don't know why they don't want me, but you just say these keywords and it will be fine. And yeah, sort of, it's pretty much that.
Yeah, Fair enough. Yeah, I'm sort of now also thinking, because we'll know better tomorrow, but also, we could go the inverse here. We could say, do we need the induction, however interesting and fun it is? But actually, if we're looking at something that we can tighten and shorten into it's not a desperately long play, we're only doing it in 2 sessions, but if we're looking at adaptation, just getting down to the nitty gritty, maybe the induction for a modern audience throws you for a loop, because you get all this stuff for half an hour, and then suddenly you're thrown into a totally different thing that has nothing really to do with what came before. So actually, maybe the induction, however much we enjoyed it, is actually the problem, and that actually we need to just make sure that the dramaturgy of the comedy is clear in what we're doing, so that when it comes to doing it, that it actually has a chance, which it might not have with it. So that's a thought I'll throw out there, but I'm not saying that's an absolute, because I still really like the induction. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Trying to figure out how the various pieces fit together, and I'm trying to figure out I think they're making some very volatile references to very volatile things going on at the moment, but they're also trying to do it in a way that sort of dodges them. Play's trying to dodge the sort of implications of some of the politically delicate pieces they're touching on. So it's difficult to pin down, I think, the direction it's going.
Yeah. I think generally the tone is kept quite light, though. It's like they said in the beginning, I want to write a savage, biting satire, and I'm sort of going, it seems like you're pulling a lot of punches here, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was a.
I think they need to pull the punches, though. I mean, I think it's dangerous to say things directly at this moment.
Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've been enjoying it probably more than most, because I think it needs the right audience, and the right audience is me and people like me. I mean, the ideal place to do it would be at a conference on the Civil War, for example. I mean, the audience would lap it up, and whether probably performed by children, but even by graduate students who would be attending that conference. I mean, graduate students would love it. Even if you're not planning to enter the church. I mean, it's basically about the intellectual life, and how it doesn't pay, and everybody likes hearing that topic. And then but if you had an audience that actually knew something about the situation in 1641, they would love it.
I think, it is fundamentally different to, say, the Parnassus plays, where there's enough there that you can sort of watch it in its own right, and you can understand it better if you have some more additional knowledge. But the narrative it is telling is relatively simple, whereas this sort of has a plot that you need to be engaged with, and the idea of the Benefice is you need to know about benefices. And most people don't. Maybe we should start with a short lecture. Tried that. It ended up being after the show. So
yeah, that's a good idea, though. I mean, it wouldn't take very much. I mean, about 10 minutes would be enough, even 5 minutes probably, to set the thing in context.
Eric, do you want to leap in again?
Well, it's also become sort of, I say fashionable. I was it's become a thing to have like an academic, not a standby, but like sort of a standby academic, but maybe a sit down. Like someone who knows about the topic. Like if you're doing a Marlowe play, you have someone who knows about Marlowe and like what he was going through when he wrote, I don't know, Dido, for example. And they are there to talk about like how that could inform the direction, or how that could inform the performance or something. So it seems to be a fashionable thing to have this mini lecture before or after or during the interval or whatever, especially during Zoom plays.
I mean, you do get them. If it's a one-off, if it's in a run, then you might get a random day. There will be a talkback element. Is a question of what you're trying to present and what you're trying to. Are you presenting education or are you presenting entertainment. And I think, you have to make a decision when you're putting the show on as to whether it's supposed to be entertaining or whether they're supposed to sit there and grit their teeth and pretend they're enjoying it. I have known such audiences. Or just total nonplussed. Nonplussedness is enjoyable, but apart from, unless we just clone Lois, an audiences of Lois's.
That was so witty. Oh, I love that Latin pun.
Okay, so Big Tech, you heard our request. Let's see what you can come up with. But until science catches up with our desires, we will return to the Benefice to find out how it ends and get a better idea of what we could do with the text overall. Till that time, all that remains to thank all our wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Bullock's liver is good stuff.